Get out of here. You're an outsider, Hunter growled, clenching his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The entire class froze, watching as the most dangerous bully in the school approached the only African-American girl in their class. Sit down, Hunter, Aliyah said calmly, not even lifting her eyes from her textbook. Her voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. Do you think you're better than us? Hunter grabbed her by the wrist, trying to pull her out from behind her desk. Now you'll learn your place. What happened next shocked everyone to the core. The most interesting part is yet to come. Stay with us to find out how it all ended. In the fourth period at Riverdale West Middle School, things were always special, not because Mrs. Anderson's math was engaging, but because it was in this class that all the hidden tensions and conflicts simmering beneath the surface of the well-off suburban institution came to light. Aliyah Williams knew this better than anyone else. Every day as she entered the classroom, she felt dozens of eyes on her, some curious, some indifferent, but one was openly hostile. The gaze of Hunter Blackwood, heir to one of the city's most influential families, a guy who believed the whole world belonged to him by birthright. Aliyah was the only African American in the class, and it was no coincidence. Her father, Colonel Marcus Williams, had recently been transferred to a military base nearby, and the family moved to this elite neighborhood after many years of wandering through military posts. For Aliyah, this was already the 7th move in the last 10 years, and she had learned to adapt, to become invisible, to not stand out. But in Riverdale, everything was different. Here, her presence was like a bright spot on a pristine canvas, and some clearly considered that spot unacceptable. Hunter Blackwood was the embodiment of everything Aliyah despised in people. A tall, broad-shouldered 17-year-old with a perfect smile and empty blue eyes, he was the star of the football team and the unofficial king of the school. Behind him stood a family with a multi-million-dollar fortune built on real estate and political connections. Hunter was used to getting everything he wanted and was not accustomed to facing resistance. He already had 3 suspensions on his record, one for fighting, one for bullying a student from a low-income family, and one for making a new boy eat sand from the football field. But each time, influential parents covered up the scandals, made generous donations to the school, and Hunter returned with an even greater sense of impunity. Aliyah entered his line of sight 3 weeks ago, and since then, his irritation had only grown. She was not just different, she was better. Better at studying, better at answering questions, better at handling assignments. Teachers praised her, classmates began to listen to her, and this drove Hunter insane. Can anyone solve this equation? Mrs. Anderson asked, pointing to the board. Silence. No one raised a hand. Hunter ostentatiously examined his nails, while his friend Mason played on his phone under the desk. Aliyah raised her hand. Yes, Aliyah? X equals 7, she said, quickly explaining her solution. Great. Absolutely correct. Hunter felt anger rising in his chest. He turned sharply to Aliyah, and their eyes met. In her dark eyes, he saw no fear, only calm confidence. This infuriated him even more. Good job, he whispered sarcastically, loud enough for her to hear. You probably think you're special? Aliyah didn't respond, continuing to listen attentively to the teacher. But Hunter saw her shoulders tense. After class, he approached her at the lockers. A small crowd had gathered around. Rumors of the brewing conflict spread quickly through the school. Listen, newbie, Hunter began, leaning against the adjacent locker and blocking her way to retreat. You need to understand something about this school. There is a certain order here, you know? A certain hierarchy. Step back, Aliyah said quietly, not lifting her eyes. And what if I don't? Hunter smirked, enjoying the attention of those gathered. What are you going to do? Complain to Daddy the soldier? The crowd whispered. Everyone knew that Aliyah's father served at the base, but few knew the details. Aliyah lifted her head and looked at Hunter. In her gaze was such cold determination that he involuntarily recoiled. I have no problem with you, Hunter, she said, but if you create them, then you will have problems. Mason giggled. Wow, she's threatening you. But Hunter wasn't laughing. Something in Aliyah's tone made him feel uneasy. He was used to the fear in the eyes of his victims, to pleas and tears. But this girl was different. That evening at home, Hunter couldn't concentrate on his homework. His thoughts kept returning to Aliyah, to her calm voice and unwavering gaze. His parents were at some charity event, and he was left alone in the huge mansion with the staff. He entered his father's office, where photographs of influential politicians and businessmen hung on the walls. Among them was one special photo, his grandfather, William Blackwood, in the uniform of a Confederate officer from the Civil War. The family prided itself on its history, its roots, its place in American society. They don't understand their place, Hunter muttered, looking at the portrait. It was a phrase he often heard from his father at family dinners when the conversation turned to changes in society and the loss of traditional values. The next day at school, the tension reached a boiling point. Elia, as usual, sat quietly in her seat in the last row when Hunter walked in. He was agitated after a sleepless night filled with angry thoughts and plans for revenge. The lesson had just begun when he suddenly stood up, knocking over his chair. The crash made everyone turn around. "Hunter, what's going on?" Mrs. Anderson asked sternly. But Hunter no longer heard her. All his attention was focused on Elia, who sat calmly at her desk, pretending nothing was happening. "Hey!" he barked, pointing a finger at her. His voice trembled with rage. "You, yes, you don't belong here." The class froze. The air thickened with tension. Mrs. Anderson paled, realizing the situation was getting out of control. "Hunter, sit down immediately." She tried to restore order. "She doesn't belong here." Hunter continued to shout, ignoring the teacher. "You're not one of us. You will never be one of us. This school is not for people like you." His words hung in the air like poison. Some students lowered their heads, others looked on in horror. Mason tried to tug at his friend's sleeve. "Hunter, calm down." But Hunter was already beyond reason. All the accumulated irritation, all the frustration from someone daring to defy his will, burst forth. Elia slowly lifted her head. Her face was calm, but there was a fire in her eyes. "Sit down, Hunter," she said quietly, but each word struck like a blow. Hunter burst into laughter. The laughter was hysterical, full of anger. "Oh, you think you can order me around? You think you're tough?" He began to walk toward her, his heavy footsteps echoing in the silence of the classroom. Each step resonated like a hammer strike. Mrs. Anderson tried to block his way, but he pushed her aside, not harming her, but roughly enough for her to step back. "Hunter, stop!" the teacher shouted, reaching for her phone to call security, but it was already too late. Hunter reached Elia's desk and stopped, looming over her. His breath was heavy, his eyes burning with madness. "What's your problem?" he hissed. "You think you're better than us? Think you're smarter?" Elia said nothing. She simply looked at him, and in that gaze was such strength, such confidence, that he felt small and pathetic. "Say something!" he yelled and kicked the leg of her desk. The desk rocked, and the handle rolled across the floor. Everyone gasped. One girl covered her face with her hands. Mason whispered, "Dude, you're going too far." But Hunter was already completely beside himself. Years of impunity, years of permissiveness had led to this moment. He leaned toward Elia, bringing his face close to hers. "You're not smart," he hissed. "You're not wanted. And you, damn it, don't belong in my class." Then he grabbed her by the wrist. "You're leaving right now," he barked, trying to pull her out from behind the desk. Elia's chair slid back. This was the moment of truth, the moment when everything changed. Hunter raised his fist, swung, and struck, but Elia was quicker. She ducked, avoiding the blow, and his fist passed by. In one smooth motion, she stood up, grabbed his wrist, twisted it, went behind him, and used his own momentum against him. Hunter flew over the desk and fell to the floor with a dull thud. Silence. Absolute, deafening silence. Elia stood over him, calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. Then she picked up her chair, sat down, and opened her notebook again. What just happened?" someone whispered. Hunter lay on the floor, groaning and trying to understand what had happened to him. His pride was shattered along with his body. Mason watched the scene with his mouth agape. She beat him? Like a ninja. One student started clapping, then another joined in, and another. Soon the whole class erupted into applause, not mocking, but full of admiration and relief. Finally, someone had put Hunter in his place. Mrs. Anderson contacted the administration. "I need security, immediately." Within minutes, 2 security guards burst into the classroom. They saw Hunter on the floor and Elia sitting calmly. "Take him away," Mrs. Anderson said. "What? No!" Hunter shouted, trying to get up. "She attacked me. She assaulted me." "No," the teacher replied coldly. "You attacked her. Everyone saw." The guards lifted Hunter from the floor. He kept screaming as they escorted him out of the classroom. "Let me go. She's the problem. She's not like us." But this time, no one agreed with him. Even Mason turned away. When the doors closed behind the bully, the classroom felt easier to breathe in. The atmosphere had changed. Elia no longer looked at others with apprehension, Now she was looked at with respect. After class, Aliyah was called to the principal's office. Mr. Thompson was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes who had seen many similar incidents in his career. "Are you okay?" was the first thing he asked. "Yes, I'm fine," Aliyah replied. "Hunter's parents are already on their way. We're reviewing the footage from the cameras, but everyone in the class saw what happened." He paused. "I didn't start the fight." "I know." Then he asked a question that surprised her. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Aliyah smiled slightly for the first time all day. "My dad is military, a Marine colonel." Mr. Thompson raised his eyebrows. "That explains a lot." The next day, the school was different. Students parted ways for Aliyah not out of fear, but out of respect. Mason approached her before class. He didn't apologize with words, but he nodded, and that nod meant a lot. Even Mrs. Anderson gave her an understanding smile. But Aliyah didn't need applause or popularity. She only needed one thing: the right to learn in this school without humiliation and discrimination. And now she had it. By the end of the day, news spread through the school. Hunter Blackwood was expelled. His influential parents could not cover up the scandal this time. Too many witnesses, too obvious aggression, too clear a motive. Aliyah walked down the hallway with her head held high. For the first time in 3 weeks, she felt at home in the school. But when she entered the classroom for the last lesson of the day, she was in for a surprise. At the door stood a new student, a girl with long chestnut hair, wearing a black leather jacket and gold hoop earrings. Her boots clicked on the floor like drumsticks. She wasn't smiling, she wasn't blinking. She was just staring straight at Aliyah. The girl walked past the empty seats and sat down in the row next to Aliyah. She crossed her arms, didn't say a word, but her eyes said it all. "I'm not here to play games." Mrs. Anderson continued the lesson, but the air became tense again, as if invisible knives were floating in it. Aliyah felt it. The new girl was nothing like Hunter. She didn't scream, she didn't wave her fists. She was smarter, and that made her more dangerous. During the lesson, she leaned over to Aliyah and whispered, "Do you think you're safe now?" Aliyah didn't look at her. "You're not safe," the girl continued. "You made my cousin look weak. Now everyone is talking about you. My family doesn't like it." It dawned on Aliyah. This was Hunter's cousin. "My name is Scarlett Thorne," the girl whispered, "and I'm here to restore my family's honor." The next lesson was history. Scarlett followed Aliyah again. At lunch, Scarlett sat at a nearby table. Rumors were already spreading through the school. "She's here because of Aliyah. Be careful. She's dangerous." But Aliyah wasn't afraid, neither of Scarlett nor anyone else. She knew that bullies didn't always come with fists. Sometimes they came with plans. After lunch, what Aliyah had expected happened. A video appeared online. Someone had recorded the moment she threw Hunter off, but the video was edited. It started from the moment she stood up and grabbed his hand, while all the previous events, his screams, insults, attempts to hit, were cut out. "Look at what really happened," the caption read. The video spread quickly. Phones buzzed and beeped all day. Aliyah stood in the hallway, watching the screen of someone else's phone, while Scarlett stood next to her with a self-satisfied smile. Aliyah didn't say anything. She walked straight to the principal's office. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "I need a meeting." "Another one?" He was surprised. "Yes," she replied, "but this time make sure there's a camera here." The next morning, the school called a general assembly. The entire student body, teachers, staff, even some parents. Mr. Thompson approached the microphone. "There has been a lot of talk about what happened this week. Some of it is true, some of it is not. So we are here to clarify the situation." He turned to the large screen. He played the full video from the classroom surveillance camera, the real one. Everyone saw Hunter screaming. Everyone saw him swing. Everyone saw Aliyah only defending herself. In the crowd, Scarlett crossed her arms, her face darkened. The hall erupted in applause, even louder than the first time. After the assembly, Aliyah was walking to her locker. Scarlett was already waiting for her there with two friends, both in black, both silent. "Do you think you're smart?" Scarlett said. "You just embarrassed my entire family." Aliyah calmly replied, "No, they embarrassed themselves." Scarlett stepped closer. "You don't belong here. You're just a charity case from the South Side trying to pretend to be better than you are." Aliyah closed her locker. "You know what I am? I'm still here." Scarlett's face turned red with anger. She raised her hand, preparing to slap her. The entire hallway held its breath. Aliyah didn't blink, but before Scarlett's hand could move, someone grabbed her wrist. It was Officer Lane, the school security guard. Enough, he said firmly. Scarlett tried to break free. She started it. No, Officer Lane shook his head. You've been harassing her for 2 days and now this. We've had enough. Mr. Thompson approached again. We reviewed the footage from the hallway cameras. We know about the edited video. We know who posted it. You are being suspended for harassment and defamation. Your parents are already on their way. Scarlett's jaw dropped. The crowd stirred, not out of anger, but because justice had finally prevailed. On Friday, a note was taped to Eliah's locker. Not mean, not rude, simply, thank you for standing up for all of us. Signed, half of the class. Eliah smiled for the first time in a week, not because she had won the fight, but because now kids like her felt that they belonged in this place. She took her usual spot, the back row, by the window. And this time, when she walked in, no one stared. They just nodded. And that was stronger than any applause. Because silence filled with respect is louder than any noise. But Eliah's story was just beginning. On Monday morning, when she thought all the troubles were behind her, the principal called her into his office. This time, there was not only the school administration, but also a representative from the school board. Mrs. Blackwood, Hunter's mother. An elegant, middle-aged woman with a perfect hairstyle and an expensive suit sat with a stone face. Next to her was a man in an expensive suit, clearly the family lawyer. Eliah, Mr. Thompson began cautiously, there are some questions regarding the incident with Hunter. Mrs. Blackwood leaned forward. My family believes that the use of force was excessive. My son was injured, and we are considering filing a lawsuit. Eliah felt her stomach tighten. She knew this could happen. Wealthy families are not used to losing, especially publicly. Your son attacked my daughter, a new voice interrupted from behind the door. A tall African-American man in military uniform entered. Colonel Marcus Williams, in full dress uniform, made an impressive impression. Dad? Eliah was surprised. She didn't expect to see him. The school contacted me after the incident, he explained, taking a seat next to his daughter. And I reviewed all the case materials. The Blackwood family's lawyer cleared his throat. Colonel Williams, we understand your concern, but the fact remains, your daughter used combat techniques against a minor. My daughter was defending herself from a racist attack, the colonel calmly interrupted him. I have testimony from 12 witnesses, surveillance footage, and a medical report stating that the only injuries your client sustained were a bruised ego and a sprained wrist. Mrs. Blackwood paled. We will not allow this girl. This girl is my daughter. The colonel's voice became dangerously quiet. And if you continue to pursue her, I will personally ensure that the whole town knows how the Blackwood family raises their children. A tense silence hung in the office. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. I think we can consider this matter closed. The lawyer quickly packed up the documents into his briefcase, and Mrs. Blackwood stood up without saying a word. As they left, she turned to Eliah. This is not the end. Yes, ma'am, Eliah replied calmly, but this is your end at this school. After they left, the colonel hugged his daughter. I'm proud of you. You did the right thing. I was just defending myself, Dad. That's exactly what I taught you. Defend yourself, defend others, but never strike first. That same day, Eliah learned that Mrs. Blackwood had resigned from the school board. The official reason was personal circumstances. The unofficial reason was that other parents learned about her son's behavior and demanded her resignation. But the most important thing happened that evening. Eliah received a message from an unknown number. Hi, this is Jessica from your biology class. I wanted to thank you. Hunter bullied me for 2 years and no one did anything. Now I can go to school normally. Thank you. Then another came. Eliah, it's Michael. Hunter made me give him all my lunch money last month. Thanks for stopping him. And another. Hi, I'm Caitlin. Hunter spread nasty rumors about me after I refused to go out with him. Thank you for the justice. By the end of the evening, her phone had 23 messages of gratitude. Eliah realized that she had done more than just protect herself. She had freed an entire school from a tyrant. The next day, the atmosphere at school was completely different. The children laughed louder, walked more confidently, and no longer looked over their shoulders in search of Hunter and his gang. But Eliah knew that the fight was not over. Families like the Blackwoods do not give up easily. They have money, connections, influence. They will find another way to attack. And she was right. On Friday evening, Colonel Williams received a call from his commander. Someone had filed a complaint about his inappropriate behavior and abuse of power in connection with the school incident. An internal investigation had begun. "They're trying to get to me through you, Dad," Elias said when she learned the news. "Let them try," the colonel replied. "I have an impeccable service record for 22 years. They will need more than the influence of a wealthy family to break me." But Elias saw the worry in his eyes. She knew how much his military career meant to him, and the thought that her actions could ruin it tore at her heart. On Monday, a new student arrived at school. This time not a relative of Hunter, but his friend Peyton Reeves, who had transferred from a private academy. A tall blonde with cold blue eyes and a predatory smile. Unlike Scarlett, Peyton was smarter and more patient. She did not openly pursue Elia. She simply existed. Always nearby, always watching, always waiting for the right moment. She quickly befriended some girls in the class, especially those who envied Elia's sudden popularity. Peyton knew how to manipulate people, and soon an atmosphere of distrust began to form around Elia. "She's too aggressive," Peyton whispered to her new friends. "What if she attacks someone else? What if next time she goes too far?" Gradually, some students began to avoid Elia, not openly but subtly. They wouldn't sit next to her, wouldn't invite her to group projects, would steer clear of her in the hallways. Elia felt the isolation closing in on her again, but this time it hurt more because she had already felt what it meant to belong to a group. The situation reached a critical point during gym class. They were playing basketball, and Elia was on the team against Peyton. The game was tense, competitive, but fair, until Peyton deliberately tripped her. Elia fell, painfully hitting her knee on the gym floor. Peyton immediately rushed over with fake concern. "Oh my God, Elia! Are you okay? That was an accident." But Elia saw the cold triumph in her eyes. The coach stopped the game, and Elia was sent to the school nurse. Her knee was painfully bruised but not broken. As she hobbled down the hallway, leaning on crutches, Peyton accidentally appeared nearby. "You know," she whispered so only Elia could hear, "Hunter was right. You don't belong here, and I will prove it to everyone." That evening at home, Elia sat on her bed, looking at her bruised knee and reflecting on what was happening. She heard her parents talking quietly downstairs. Her father was still under investigation, and her mother was worried about how it would affect the family. A message from an unknown number came to her phone. "Check the school social media page." Elia opened the page and saw a post that made her heart stop. It was a photo from gym class, the moment she fell, but taken from such an angle that it looked like she was attacking Peyton. The caption read, "Dangerous student once again uses force. When will this stop?" The post already had 50 likes and numerous comments, most from people who didn't even know the whole story, but quickly condemned her. Elia closed her phone and cried. For the first time in this whole ordeal, she allowed herself to show weakness. She was strong when faced with direct aggression, but this hidden, insidious war of attrition was destroying her from the inside. The next day at school, the atmosphere changed again. Some students looked at her warily, others with pity. Peyton walked around with a satisfied smile, surrounded by her new admirers. During lunch, Elia sat alone. Jessica, the girl who had thanked her for getting rid of Hunter, approached her table hesitantly. "Elia," she began quietly, "I know what's going on, and I know it's wrong." Elia looked up. "Peyton is lying. I saw what happened in gym class. She set you up on purpose." Jessica sat down next to her. "And I'm not the only one who noticed." Michael, the boy who had been bullied by Hunter, approached them. "We remember what you did for us, and we won't let them destroy you." One by one, students came to their table. Not everyone, but enough. Kids who remembered what it was like to be a victim, who understood the value of justice. "What can we do?" Caitlin asked. Elia thought for a moment, then said, "Tell the truth, the whole truth, about what really happened with Hunter, about what Peyton is doing now. People have the right to know." They developed a plan. Over the next few days, each of them told their story. How Hunter had bullied them, how Elia had protected them, how Peyton was now trying to twist the facts. Slowly but surely, the mood in the school began to change. People started asking questions, doubting Peyton's version, seeing a pattern in her behavior. The turning point came when Tommy Chen, a quiet Asian boy from Elia's class, recorded a video on his phone. Peyton didn't know he was recording when she bragged to her friends about how she was destroying that black girl piece by piece. Tommy showed the video to Elia, and she knew the moment of truth had come. The next day, she requested a meeting with Mr. Thompson. This time, she didn't come alone. She had 7 classmates with her, including Tommy with his phone. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "I need to show you something." They played the video. The principal paled as he listened to Peyton bragging about her manipulations, using racist slurs, and her plans to put that girl in her place. "That's enough," he said quietly. "More than enough." Peyton was expelled the same day. Her influential parents tried to protest, but this time the school was ready. They had evidence, witnesses, and the support of the majority of the parent community, which was tired of the toxic behavior of certain families. On Friday of that week, Colonel Williams received a call from his commander. The investigation was closed. The complaint was deemed baseless and motivated by personal revenge. "Aliyah," he told his daughter that evening, "I got a new assignment. We're being transferred to a base in Colorado." Aliyah's heart sank. Another move, another new school, another attempt to find her place. "When?" she asked. "In a month." "But..." He paused. "If you want, we can request a delay until the end of the school year. You finally found your place here." Aliyah looked out the window at the now familiar streets of Riverdale. Yes, she had found her place here, but she also realized something important. Her place was not tied to a specific school or city. Her place was where she was ready to stand for truth and justice. "No, Dad," she said. "We can go. I know who I am, and I will be okay, wherever we are." On Monday, when Aliyah announced to the class that she would be leaving soon, the reaction surprised her. Half the class was genuinely upset. Jessica cried. "Michael said the school wouldn't be the same without her." "You changed everything," Caitlin said. "You showed us that we can stand up for ourselves." Mr. Thompson asked her to stay after class. "Aliyah," he said, "in 20 years of working in education, I've seen many students, but I rarely meet someone with your character. You didn't just get an education here, you gave it to others." He handed her a letter. "This is a recommendation for your new school. If they have questions about who Aliyah Williams is, they will find answers here." On her last day at school, Aliyah received a surprise. The class organized a farewell party for her. Even those students who initially doubted her came to say goodbye. Tommy Chen, the boy who filmed the pivotal video, gave her a note. "Thank you for teaching me to be brave." But the most important moment came when Mason, Hunter's former best friend, approached her. "Aliyah," he said awkwardly, I need to apologize for everything, for not stopping him, for staying silent. You were right from the very beginning." "Thank you," she replied, "but the most important thing is that you realized it." As the Williams family loaded the last boxes into the truck, Mrs. Anderson approached the house. "Aliyah," the teacher said, "I wanted to tell you something. I've taught hundreds of kids, but you are special. You reminded me why I became a teacher." She handed Aliyah a small book. "This is for you. Someday when you face challenges in a new place, remember, you have already proven that you can change the world." Aliyah opened the book. On the first page it read, "For the girl who taught adults to be brave. With love and respect, Mrs. Anderson." As the truck pulled away from the house, Aliyah looked out the back window at Riverdale School. She knew that wherever she ended up next, she would be ready, because she understood the most important truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what is right despite the fear. The epilogue took place 6 months later. Aliyah received a message from Jessica. "Hi, I wanted to share some news. Our school now has a new anti-bullying program. It's called Project Aliyah. Kids are learning to stand up for themselves and others. Your story has become part of the school curriculum. You are still changing lives even though you're not here." Aliyah smiled as she read the message. In her new school in Colorado, she had already made friends with a few kids, helped one boy cope with bullying, and showed her class what true courage means. Because some people are not meant to blend in with the crowd. They are meant to stand when others fall, to speak when others are silent, and to show the way when others are lost. And in every school, in every town, there needs to be an Aliyah Williams, a person who remembers that justice does not come on its own. It must be fought for every day, one right choice at a time. But 2 weeks after her triumph in Riverdale, life prepared a new challenge for Aliyah. On Monday morning, when she thought the worst was behind her, a new student walked into the classroom. This was not an ordinary student. It was Isabella Morgan, the daughter of the local congressman, whose family owned half the businesses in town. Aliyah immediately realized the problems were just beginning. Isabella was the complete opposite of Hunter. Instead of brute force, she used sophisticated psychological tactics. Instead of open threats, hidden manipulations. Aliyah found her place in the class, made friends with a few kids, including Nathan Crawford, the son of the local doctor, who, despite his privileged position, turned out to be a kind and fair guy. But everything changed in an instant. On Monday morning, the new student walked into the classroom. Isabella Morgan, the daughter of Senator James Morgan, one of the most influential politicians in the country. Isabella approached the desk where she and Nathan were sitting and coldly said, "Sorry, but this is my seat." Nathan was taken aback. "Isabella, there are plenty of free seats." "I said, this is my seat," she repeated, not taking her eyes off Aliyah. Aliyah understood that it wasn't about the seat. It was about the fact that she dared to feel equal to the local elite. "All right," Aliyah said calmly, gathering her things. "I'll move." But Isabella was not finished. "Do you know who I am?" she asked quietly. "The congressman's daughter," Aliyah replied. "Exactly. And do you know what happens to people who go against my family? They lose their jobs, their kids don't get into colleges, their loans are called back by banks." Aliyah felt the ground slipping beneath her feet. The family had just moved to this city. The father got a job at the local hospital, and the mother taught at the elementary school. They relied on the local community's goodwill. "I can do anything," Isabella continued, "especially when it comes to people who don't know their place." That evening at home, she said nothing to her parents. Dr. Williams was happy in his new position, and the mother finally felt safe. Aliyah could not disrupt their peace. But something unexpected happened that same day. Catherine Davis, the daughter of the local librarian, a quiet girl who always kept to herself, approached Aliyah. "Aliyah," she said softly, "I heard what's going on, and I want you to know you're not alone." "What do you mean?" "Isabella has been doing the same thing for a year and a half. She ruined the reputations of two families whose children dared to contradict her." "My father was one of them," Aliyah gasped. "What happened?" "He was accused of embezzling library funds, a false accusation, but it was impossible to prove. Dad lost his job and we almost got evicted from our home." Catherine wiped her tears. "But we have something now that we didn't have before." "What?" "Witnesses. I've been gathering testimonies from everyone who has suffered because of her family. I have written statements from 5 families about how the Morgans used their influence to blackmail." "Why are you showing this to me?" Aliyah asked. "Because you're the only one brave enough to use it. And because if we don't stop her now, she will continue to ruin lives." Aliyah understood that this was a chance, but she also realized that it was the most dangerous chance of her life. If she lost, it wouldn't just be her who suffered, but also Catherine and everyone who had helped her. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table, watching her father review the documents of his case. He looked tired, broken. Her mother tried to support him, but Aliyah saw fear in her eyes. "Dad," she said suddenly. "Yes, dear? If you knew you could stop injustice, but it would put our family at risk, what would you do?" Colonel Williams looked up and studied his daughter closely. "Aliyah, what's going on?" She told him everything. About Isabella, the threats, the connection between school problems and his professional troubles. About Catherine's records and the possibility of changing everything. Her parents listened in shock. Her mother wanted to pull her out of school immediately and move to another state. But her father was silent for a long time. And then he said, "Aliyah, 23 years ago, I took an oath to protect this country from external and internal enemies. Corruption, blackmail, abuse of power. These are internal enemies." "Marcus," her mother whispered, "think about the family." "I am thinking about the family," he replied. "I'm thinking about what kind of country we will leave for our children. I'm thinking that if we don't stop this now, other families will suffer tomorrow." He turned to Aliyah. "The decision is yours. I will support any choice you make." Aliyah knew this was a moment of truth, not just for her, but for all the principles that defined her as a person. "I will fight," she said quietly, "but not alone." The next day, Aliyah and Catherine went not to the school administration, but straight to the FBI. Isabella's records contained not only threats, but also details of her father's corrupt schemes, which were direct violations of federal law. Agent Sarah Mitchell, a middle-aged woman with piercing eyes, listened carefully to their story. "Girls," she said seriously, "do you understand what you're getting into? Senator Morgan is a very powerful man. If we start an investigation, he will unleash all his power on you." "We understand," Aliyah replied, "but if we do nothing, he will continue to ruin lives." Agent Mitchell smiled. "You know, in my 15 years with the FBI, I've rarely met teenagers with such courage." The investigation began quietly, but Isabella quickly realized that something was happening. The following week, the threats against the Williams family intensified. The colonel was summoned for interrogations every day, and the accusations grew more serious. But something unexpected happened. Nathan Crawford, the son of a major general who had previously kept his distance, suddenly approached Aliyah in the hallway. "I know what you're doing," he said quietly, "and I want to help." "Nathan, it's dangerous. My family has served this country for 4 generations. We won't let corrupt politicians destroy everything we fought for." It turned out that Major General Crawford had long suspected Senator Morgan of corruption, but had no evidence. Now that evidence had emerged, he was ready to support the investigation with all his influence. This changed everything. Isabella could no longer simply suppress the case by force. Now she faced a coalition of military and law enforcement, but she did not give up. Realizing that direct threats were ineffective, she chose a different tactic. On Monday morning, Aliyah arrived at school to find that the entire school was against her. Someone had spread false rumors that she had betrayed the school community, collaborated with the feds against her classmates' families, ruined the academy's reputation. The kids who had once been friendly to her now turned away. Teachers looked at her with suspicion. Even Catherine was forced to keep her distance to avoid revealing her role in the investigation. Aliyah was completely isolated. Every day at school became a test of endurance. Whispers behind her back, hostile glances, accidental bumps in the hallway. Worst of all was that some of these kids were good people who had simply been deceived. They genuinely believed that Aliyah had betrayed their community. At home, the situation was also worsening. Colonel Williams received an official warning about possible dismissal. Her mother couldn't find a job. Every time she went for an interview, she was unexpectedly turned down. "Maybe we should stop," her mother said one evening. "Maybe it's not worth it." Elia sat in her room, listening to her parents argue downstairs. Her father insisted on continuing the fight, while her mother wanted to give up, and all because of a decision she had made. For the first time in her life, Aliyah doubted the correctness of her choice. Maybe sometimes it's better to swallow injustice than to risk everything that is dear. But then Jessica from Riverdale called her. "Aliyah, I saw the news. What's happening in Colorado?" Aliyah told her everything. "You know what I'm going to tell you?" Jessica said after a long silence. "Remember how you explained the difference between courage and foolishness?" "No. You said that courage is doing the right thing, even when it's scary, and foolishness is doing the wrong thing because it's easy." Aliyah laughed through her tears. "Did I say that?" "You did. And you added that sometimes the price of truth is high, but the price of lies is always higher." After the call, Aliyah thought for a long time. Jessica was right. Principles should not change depending on circumstances. Either justice matters or it doesn't. The next day at school, something happened that became a turning point in the entire story. During history class, the teacher, Mr. Palmer, was talking about civil disobedience and the civil rights movement. "Who can name an example of a person who risked everything for justice?" he asked. Several hands went up, and students named Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and other well-known activists. "Good," Mr. Palmer said. "And who can say what all these people have in common?" Silence. Then Isabella raised her hand. "They all broke the law and disrupted the stability of society." "Interesting point of view," the teacher said diplomatically. "Does anyone think differently?" Aliyah slowly raised her hand. It was the first time in a week that she dared to speak in class. "Yes, Aliyah?" "I think they understood that silence in the face of injustice is complicity in that injustice." The class buzzed. Isabella shot a cold look at Aliyah. "It's easy to talk about principles when you don't think about the consequences for other people," she said with a venomous smile. "But is it easy to talk about stability when you don't think about the people that this stability oppresses?" Aliyah replied calmly. "Mr. Palmer felt the tension in the classroom. "Girls, let's focus on historical examples." But Isabella was not going to stop. "Some people think they are heroes, but in reality, they are just selfish individuals who put their principles above the well-being of others. And some people think they are protecting order, but in reality, they are just protecting their privileges," Aliyah responded. The entire class fell silent. It was a direct confrontation, and everyone understood that this was not about history. Isabella stood up. "How dare you accuse my family?" "I didn't mention your family," Aliyah said calmly, "but it's interesting that you decided so." This was the moment when Isabella's mask finally slipped. Her face contorted with rage, and she shouted, "My family built this country. We rule here. And you are nobody. Your place is to obey." Mr. Palmer tried to restore order, but it was too late. Isabella had lost control. "Do you think your federal friends will protect you?" she continued to scream. "My father will bury them all. He will bury your father. He will bury anyone who dares to stand against us. The class sat in shock. Even her supporters realized that she had gone too far. But Aliyah was not afraid. She stood up and said quietly, but so that everyone could hear, "You know what the difference is between us, Isabella? You are afraid of losing power, and I am afraid of losing myself." This was the last straw. Isabella tried to hit Aliyah, but she was ready. She easily dodged, and Isabella fell, losing her balance. But Aliyah did not take the opportunity to retaliate. Instead, she reached out to help Isabella up. "I am not your enemy," she said softly. "Your enemy is the fear of losing what does not belong to you." Isabella pushed her hand away and ran out of the classroom. But the lesson was not over. Mr. Palmer looked at Aliyah and said, "Perhaps this is the best example of civil courage I have seen in 20 years of teaching." One of the students started to clap, then another. Soon the entire class was applauding Aliyah, not for defeating Isabella, but for showing them what it means to maintain dignity under pressure. But that was only half the story. That evening, Agent Mitchell called the Williams family. "Colonel, I have news. Senator Morgan has been arrested. The recordings provided by the girls helped us uncover the corruption network we have been pursuing for years." But the joy was short-lived. "However," the agent continued, "there is a problem. Morgan's lawyers claim that the recordings were obtained illegally, as they were made by a minor without consent. They are demanding to exclude them from the case." Colonel Williams paled. "What does that mean?" "It means that the case could fall apart. And if that happens, Morgan will come back even angrier." Aliyah felt the world collapsing around her. All the victims, all the risks, and it could all be in vain. But then a miracle happened. The next day at school, a boy Aliyah had never noticed before, David Chang, the son of a Korean immigrant who worked as a janitor on the base, approached her. "Aliyah," he said quietly, "I want to show you something." He pulled out his phone from his backpack and showed her a recording that made Aliyah gasp in surprise. It was a video of yesterday's history lesson, a video in which Isabella was screaming that her father would bury anyone who dared to stand against him, a video in which she openly threatened federal agents. "I recorded this for myself," David explained. "I always record lessons to better understand the material. English is not my native language." Aliyah realized that they had new evidence that was obtained legally and that showed the true face of the Morgan family. But when she wanted to take the phone, David shook his head. "Wait," he said, "there's something else." He showed her another recording, a phone conversation between Isabella and her father, a conversation in which Senator Morgan gave his daughter direct instructions to destroy that black girl and her family by any means necessary. "How did you get this?" Aliyah whispered. "Utinanam." "Isabella forgot her phone in class last week. I wanted to return it to her, but it started ringing, and I accidentally answered. The conversation recorded automatically. I have an app that records all calls for language study." Aliyah felt dizzy. These recordings were not just evidence of corruption. They were proof of a direct conspiracy aimed at destroying a military family for political motives. "David, why are you showing me this?" The boy smiled. "My family came to America to escape corruption and tyranny. We can't let this country become like the one we fled." Aliyah handed the recordings to Agent Mitchell, and this time the case against Senator Morgan became airtight. But more importantly, these recordings revealed the true nature of the Morgan family to the entire school. David posted a video of the history lesson on social media, and it went viral. People across the country saw how the senator's daughter openly threatened classmates and federal agents. Isabella was expelled from school the next day. Her father tried to use his influence to hush up the scandal, but it was too late. Public opinion turned against him. A week later, Senator James Morgan resigned. A month later, he was convicted of corruption and abuse of power. By the end of the day, the whole school knew the truth. Isabella was expelled, and Congressman Morgan announced a suspension of his political career due to family circumstances. After school, several classmates approached Aliyah. "Thank you," said one girl. "I was afraid of Isabella for 2 years, but I didn't know how to fight her." "You showed us what it means to have principles," Nathan added. But the most important words came from Catherine. "You know what's amazing? We didn't plan to change the world. We were just trying to protect ourselves and others." That evening at home during dinner, her father said to Aliyah, "Dear, I am proud of your courage. You risked everything for justice." "I just couldn't stay silent, Dad. I couldn't watch her ruin people's lives." "That's what distinguishes heroes from ordinary people," he smiled. "Heroes are not brave because they are not afraid. They are brave because they do the right thing despite their fear." That night, Aliyah received a message from an unknown number. It was Isabella. Aliyah, I know you hate me, but I want to say something. You were right. I was terrible. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I want you to know you changed me. Thank you for stopping me. Aliyah stared at the screen for a long time, then replied, we can all change. Good luck, Isabella. The next day, the atmosphere at school was completely different. The children were no longer afraid to speak the truth, no longer afraid to stand up for each other. Aliyah realized that this was the most important victory, not the exposure of one bully, but the creation of an environment where justice is possible. Mr. Palmer asked her to stay after class. Aliyah, he said, yesterday you gave us all a lesson in true civic courage, not just in words but in actions. I was just doing what I thought was right. And that is what courage is all about. Doing the right things not because they are easy, but because they are right. Leaving school, Aliyah thought about the journey she had taken. From a scared girl in Riverdale to a person who learned to stand up for justice. She understood that every conflict, every trial made her stronger, taught her to be the person she wanted to become. New challenges and new injustices lay ahead to fight against. But now she knew she was not alone. There would always be people around her ready to stand for the truth. And most importantly, she realized that courage is contagious. One person willing to say no to injustice can change everything. Because bravery is not about not being afraid. Bravery is about doing the right thing despite the fear. And the choice always remains with us.